When it comes to my channel, I always make it my mission to talk about the beauty and garbage that does come out of Disney for the better or worse, especially the animation, because no other studio has made a major impact on animation like Disney has had, being now 100 years old, and most of us actually remain thankful for it, and thankful for this current short that was released in Once Upon a Studio, graced before us to officially celebrate their centennial, one many have already talked about at this point I assume before you watch this very video, where because of my own love of Disney, I just had to chime in with this as well. Because in recent times, and recently on my channel, I went in on how Disney isn't quite what it used to be anymore. It felt like people couldn't actually see the magic ever returning, but then also realized through shorts like this, that Disney still has something magical to offer, going back to the core ideals of Walt Disney himself beginning as an animator. This is just a true celebration of all of what they've done through that course of time and nothing else. Nothing regarding their other brands like Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars, and just the core essence of what Disney is with their own animation studio. And yes, at the very least, we were all happy to learn that they went back to 2D with this very short, tributing to old characters and combining them with the new, just like they are now, and no live action rendition ever existing whatsoever. I mean, in regarding live action in that sense, they did disclude some characters for good reasons, despite also being animation like the band Song of the South, Roger Rabbit, Enchanted, and so forth, which weren't actually counted under Disney itself, and went by their own official 62 movies that have been released or is going to be released, with the inclusion of Wish with characters like Asha. And seeing all those generations of characters come together for a photo and sing a song was just very special to me, with what I learned in my own love over the years, and of course in Mickey Mouse looking up to Walt Disney himself the same way I do in my own life for what he had done. A true icon of the industry who changed the way we think of the world for the better, and I think that's the best thing they've ever done recently, especially when you can hear Feed the Birds playing in the background where Mickey is paying tribute to him, one of his favorite songs that showed that Disney has people who do hold his legacy and cherish it up to this day. No grand story except for the ones these artists actually created in the beginning, including ones of both old and new, like of course Bernie Maddison, whom this short is actually dedicated to, working for Disney since 1953, actually being there since the days of Walt himself up until his passing earlier in February this year. Just amazing to know the man who actually worked for Disney about 30 years after its founding, and about 70 more years right after, just before its first centennial, beginning on films like Lady and the Tramp, and finally working on The Dog from Strange World, where he also pitched in an idea to the studio to create a full-length Mickey Mouse film. Such a fantastic legacy to actually look back upon on that history and what Disney has to offer, which I thank both Dan Abraham and Trent Corey for actually directing this, getting all these talented voice actors to come back from their very respective films, both old and new for the most part, where they actually did a fine job fulfilling the role others had. This includes things like using archival footage for characters like Genie in Robin Williams' own voice, which was totally fine on my part, respecting on what he had put in that very role, alongside other greats that have passed, like Sterling Holloway and Clarence Nash, who formed the very characters in the first place while also blending in with the new. This is where they got all of our favorites back, like Auli'i as Moana, The Rock as Maui, Jodie Benson as Ariel, Paige O'Hara as Belle, Tom Hulce as Quasimodo, Nathan Lane as Timon, and even James Woods as Hades and Jeremy Irons as Scar. The most surprising thing I've actually learned about this entire production. Not James Woods, because I knew he'd always actually voice Hades no matter what, but more like finally getting Jeremy Irons to portray Scar once again. Which of course before, he was actually open to originally reprise his role in the quote-unquote live-action film like James Earl Jones did, but of course they just didn't do that because they needed to be more realistic in the film, whereas Scar is actually anything but, which would have actually made it a more competent film than the crap Jon Favreau actually released finally. But anyways, just focusing on this short alone and Disney Animation just makes me very happy for the fact that they got to work with them again, either at the studio itself or through Zoom, to give us new lines to enjoy this very celebration. And like I said before, that opening, including the Disney animators, is probably the most important piece of this entire film, with the pictures hanging on the walls of those who actually created it, like Ub Iwerks himself, who helped with Mickey Mouse amongst the other greats from Walt Disney's own. A true respect to the value of who actually helped make millions of people's dreams come true in our own hearts, opening to the value of actually being young. I mean, there isn't a single person out there that could actually hate this short for what it actually represents, unless your channel does revolve around the idea that every single goddamn thing in the world is woke, which is truly pathetic, where we should just instead celebrate this positive impact that Disney has done over the course of 100 years. It's just a universal good time, and a reminder that all of us actually do love Disney and will continue to do so for the passion and creativity it has produced. Like those who dream of becoming a Disney animator in my own comment section or around the world, to people like me who want to actually head the entire Disney organization as its future CEO, and the value it could actually bring to billions across the globe. And I really think it's great that Disney is doing this to really acknowledge the existence of other underrated films or not so great films they made, just like Chicken Little and actually representing Meet the Robinsons more than we actually expect. Adding those little details just go a long way in servicing that all Disney actually has to offer. There are just so many small references to the way they animated the characters and what each of them served to really pay respect to its own very audience, and I really love that fact as well. But just disappointed how it really never included every single character as much as we would like. Where above all, this short truly reminded me how much I missed the House of Mouse series and how they actually need to bring it back in this age. It was my most favorite Disney show as a kid, where it did the same thing as we see right here in this short, bringing all the Disney animated characters to that point in one single place to hang out and interact, watching classic and modern Mickey Mouse shorts along the way. A refreshing time that showed us what our favorite characters actually do in their pastimes, where now, because of this short, we can actually have both of them in their respective 2D and 3D animated styles. They blend in so well, and I love that for this very short. And I really think because of that, Disney should go ahead and produce another series of the House of Mouse. I mean, yes, this is clearly a special paying tribute to Walt Disney Animation itself for 100 years, with the character standing out of the Roy E. Disney building that is named after the last Disney who worked in the company, but the idea of having them together is just so fantastic that they really need to bring it back, where they showed that they can blend them together in a single world with newer stories to tell both young and old to enjoy in their homes. And before anyone asks in disappointment with the inclusion of other Disney villains, I indeed actually found Frollo in the picture down by Tarzan and Jane on Tantor and next to the Reluctant Dragon, which is also a very neat fact because it wasn't an official Disney film either, and more about the behind the scenes process at Disney at the time, where you can also see the dancing skeletons from the famous 1929 Silly Symphony. So not only the films itself, but also the short subjects really getting that labor of love, exciting us for a future to come despite our reservations of today, where I still cannot find myself getting around to the style of Wish for some reasons. Something about it really just seems off at this time, but actually fine when put with the other characters in Generations in this short, and I'm actually excited to see where that will go. And of course, above all, just grateful to Disney valuing their 2D in some way or form. This short really needed that to pay tribute to what they were doing, and actually understanding why they actually went for this rather than Wish, although I wish Wish would actually still be 2D like they originally planned. But all in all, with what we got, it was a true simple tribute to focus on the legacy of Walt Disney himself, where once again, I really thank him for everything that has happened so far and will continue to happen, may exist for 100 years from now. And with all of that said, I'm all done, so goodbye.